Yes. Okay. So while you're collecting your data, which will not start this week or next week, but the week after, you will have to come to one of the meetings. You can come to both to touch base, but I want you to come to one. You're going to self-select that. You will talk to me at least one time while you're collecting your data. That'll be a self-scheduled meeting. You're going to email me and say, we need to talk this week. I want to talk this week. If I don't hear you by week 3, I'll be emailing you and saying it has to happen. That's required. That's points for your grade. It's big points for your grade, because otherwise you're out there all by yourself for 4 weeks and it's confusing and lonely. On occasion anyway. If you want to talk to me more, we can talk every week. We can talk twice a week. But that one's up to you. You know, if you have a lot of questions, you want to make sure things are going okay. But I don't want to waste your time if you feel like you're good to go and that you're like cruising right along. And I also don't want to let you out there feeling like you're all alone in this and not having some kind of way, shape, or form to get back in touch with people. So I've got some things built in. I'll email you out that with this week. Last week, as I talked to all of you guys, for the most part, you have really great ideas. And for the most part, a few tweaks. You have good research questions. You have good interview questions. What I found as a pattern across the board is that your research questions that you finally kind of were settling on were starting to sound a little bit like interview questions. Okay? Interview questions and research questions, if you have very targeted research questions, can overlap. So don't panic if I told you that. It's not saying your stuff is bad. It's just saying that think about it maybe for the research in slightly broader terms, or looking at the answer you're trying to get to, and the research or the interview questions more how you're going to get your answers. This stuff should align. You should have a piece of theoretical background. Maybe you're looking at trying to think of a piece that you probably have. So I use a lot of the time with my work, because I'm looking, let's say for right now, I'm looking at scientific curiosity. So maybe I'm looking at the fact that curiosity can have some factors that are like stretching, embracing, and they can also be content specific. Okay, so those 3 factors are based in literature, and that's a theoretical framework that I'm going to use as I push forward. Now, my research question based on that might be something along the lines of, you know, how do students display curiosity, or what kind of curious behaviors do students have when they're working in a makerspace? Okay, so that's my research question. That's what I want to know. So I'm going to show you a little bit of video here in a few moments in a piece of software that I really like, and I'm going to suggest that you give it a good try because it's free to help you with your analysis if you're doing anything with video or even audio. So that's my research question. The theoretical framework I'm pulling from is that curiosity. Now, some of you might be working with like self-actualization or some kind of motivational theory, or like Hirschberg's hygiene theory. I've learned about all kinds of theoretical frameworks this week that I have no clue about. Never had a class on motivation. I look at it from other ways. So these are pieces pulling from Ray's class. So if you're looking at hygiene theory and they have these pieces that are laid out, then you're pulling from a theoretical framework for your theoretical framework. That's how you're looking at your data. Some of the rest of you might be looking at it from a kind of more practice-based thing. So maybe you read a paper and it says that online teachers have these 3 factors that make for a really good lesson. You know, they have this, they have this, they have this. And it's not necessarily theory, but it is something that somebody is saying based on practices that, you know, designing for good online experiences have these 3 factors. So if that's the case, you can take that and use that as your framework that you're hanging everything on. Even though it's not written as a theoretical piece, it is derived from theory and you can use that. What that does then is it sets up your questions. if this is the theory that you're basing your stuff on, and your research question kind of aligns with that, then the data that you're collecting, the analysis that you're going to do to answer your questions, all line up with that theory. So when you go into this week and you start looking at focusing document number 2, that's what I'm trying to get you to see, is what theory, what piece of literature, what suggestions. You know, maybe I'm looking at social tagging, and I'm looking at the fact that they have 2 different pieces that go along with that. Or maybe I'm looking at, you know, argumentation, and there's 3 factors that are 3 pieces that argumentation has been broken out into to look at. Whatever it is that I'm looking at for my research question, there should be some kind of paper or idea that backs me up, whether I'm looking for evidence to support it, I'm looking for things that are different, I'm looking for ideas that go around it and look at it differently. I'm looking to refute it. You know, one of my friends used to say about edits for a document, you know, use, refuse, abuse. So, you know, maybe you're taking this piece and you're looking to use it. You're looking to tear it to pieces, gently, of course, because we make small steps. Or you're looking to just take one chunk of it and add to it or twist it around. Whatever way you're doing it, there should be something, though, that we can line up and pull across. Because if you don't do that, then you're just doing a research study and it's hanging out in thin air, and it doesn't connect to anything else. And everything that we do has to connect across in some way, even if it doesn't align with anything anybody else has ever done. Even if it's brand new stuff. There's got to be a way to tie it back. All right, so what we'll be looking at then as you move through this week is how can you analyze your data and get some evidence to answer your questions, your research question, from that. So lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Okay, so we have this theory, we have our data, we want to be able to pull it across. We need to be able to look at these coding. So part of the thing you're going to be doing over the next 2 weeks is making a code book. Your code book is going to have 2 types of places in it. One you're going to set up ahead of time, and I'm going to force you to do this, even if sometimes research studies do not have this, and those are called a priori codes. Those are ones that you're going into that you think maybe you might see something about. Okay? And all of you know, you pick your research questions because you have a hunch that it does something. Okay? You think based on things that you read or things that you see that this has an impact. So a priori codes are based either in the theoretical framework, in the literature, and the stuff that you've read, and you can pull from 15 different sources if you want to, or you can pull from one, and it's also based in your gut. These are some things that I think I might see, okay? Then as you get into it and start digging through your data, occasionally be like, yep, thought I was gonna see that, yep, thought I was gonna see that, and you're gonna be like, wow, that's weird. That's weird are the things that you usually wanna pay attention to, by the way. Because the things that are a little different or a little odd, or you're like, those are the things that you really, you know, sometimes push you in a direction that you weren't expecting and give you really outstanding results that do end up being in journal articles and pushing forward the knowledge in the field that you're in. Okay, I have a cartoon somewhere that I couldn't find today that says, you know, something, it's like a meme, and it says, you know, most people think that scientific discoveries are accompanied by eureka, I've got it. And most of the time they're not. This is paraphrasing because it's not funny now, but it's usually things like, huh, that's really weird. Or, you know, that doesn't make sense. Or, you know, huh, that was wrong. Those kind of things are where you want to look at it and come back and kind of see what happened and where it went sideways. And that's where you sometimes find your big advancements. So those are, you don't have a code for those. You weren't expecting them. So what you want to be able to have then is a space where you can say, okay, here's some what they call emerging codes. So you have a priori that are set up ahead of time, and then emerging ones that you're like, okay, I'm seeing a pattern with this, or I see something here that I want to look at, and then you add that to your code book so you can remember to look across. Because when you write up your analysis at the end, you'll go back and you'll include all of these pieces in together so that it makes sense for you. Okay. So with my curiosity then, my code book is going to say, to start off with, it'll say like stretching, embracing, and content specific. But then it also had to include in there, because what we started seeing was that kids were testing things out and not talking about them, but they were trying to do different hypotheses or put together different hypotheses about the way things worked. But they were coming about as design iterations without speaking. So what we had to start highlighting then, whenever we looked at the video, was that these iterations, we think, are identifiable as curiosity because they're testing out these different pieces that they're not verbalizing. Okay? So that's kind of where we're at with that. Does that make sense? From what we all were talking about, like with all of you as we talked this week about your different topics and how you're putting them together. Okay, do you have questions? Do you need to talk about where your stuff's coming from or where you might be able to find your codes or, okay. The data storage plan for this week, basically look at mine, and that's what IRB wants to see, is that these things will be stored these ways, and they have to have a naming system, and they need to be encrypted and in a password protected drive. And that's just kind of almost boilerplate language. But that way, if you put it in your document, whenever you do your IRB later, you have it there to pull from. So it's just kind of like, this is the piece you have to do, and that's how it's going to be. The other pieces, a lot of your protocol are, a couple of you have really detailed protocols. A couple of you, though, just kind of said, well, I'm going to do interviews, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. You need to think about carefully who you're going to talk to first, what you want to do first, how each piece will inform you. If you're going to do, a document analysis, or you're going to do your observation on a discussion forum and look through the discussion forum and see what all's there, or a Twitter chat and see what's there, and then use that to help formulate additional questions for your interviews. Or if you want to do the interviews first and kind of see, what the people come up with, and then go and look for evidence in the other pieces. So you want to be spinning this through your head, how you're going to do this. Also, if you're going to do an intervention, some of you are basically looking at kind of program evaluation. The stuff is there, and you're going to look at what's going across. Some of you, though, are looking at, I am doing this right now, and I want people to participate in this so I can talk about it. And in that case, you need to kind of separate it out and think about how each of these pieces relate to each other, because you don't want to kind of spoil the soup by interviewing people and telling them what you're looking for before they do the intervention, if that's not what you intend. And it's all, that's why I talk to you all by yourselves, because it is all design specific for your question and what you want to do. So you need to think through how you feel like it would play out best. And then whenever you do your research study in 2 weeks, you're going to follow that. And that's what we're going to do. Okay? And you'll test it out, and you'll be like, this did not work how I wanted it to work. And then when you do your IIP or your dissertation, you're going to go, okay, I'm going to flip-flop those. Or these questions did not give me any good answers. I need to reframe my questions and make them more open-ended. Or I need to reframe my questions and ask more probing questions and be willing to push on people when they're not comfortable. Or, I need to have them write a reflection and lay out all these thoughts on paper because I don't think that they really were doing it in the interview. Any of these pieces, that's what I want you to learn with this, is what's working for you to get some good data and what really doesn't work for you to get good data. How can I reframe the questions? How can I reframe the prompt that I have them write about? What kind of activities do they do in a classroom that are going to give me answers that I want or elicit responses that I want? What kind of an intervention could I have? I know Corinne's looking at Twitter perhaps. And so, do I present a Twitter chat and have them participate in it and then ask them how they think? Do I want to interview them before and after? You know, what do you think about a Twitter chat? Do a Twitter chat. What do you think after the Twitter chat? You know, what kind of things like that do I want to do to see the kind of response that I want to look at, investigate? So this is more than just doing a lesson and getting a test at the end. That'll work. That can give you good results. But depending on your research question, that may or may not answer it for you. And some of you, I know, I said, you're looking right now at just foundational elements. You are looking at just kind of putting on the tablecloth before you set down the table with all this stuff you want to do later. You're getting some very basic information to see how people are viewing things and to see if this kind of study is going to work for you in the context that you have. Because some of you, when I was talking to you, what you wanted to do and what you can do with where you're working and the resources that you have available, it's not going to work. So we had to go a different direction. So in that case, you know, it's better to find out now than whenever you're 3 months into writing your dissertation proposal. Okay? And do keep in mind, your dissertation, in my opinion, is one big data collection that you split into 3 research questions and you write 3 articles. So you'll do this whole process once, get all your data, whether it's survey, interviews, whatever, and then you write 3 papers from it, and you write probably maximum 30,000 words. That's a huge honking paper of 10,000 words a piece, instead of like my dissertation, which was 250 pages, after I cut out 2 questions. So this is a much more streamlined process for you and much more realistic with how the real world works, rather than writing a dissertation you chop up later. Okay, so with that, I want to show you really quickly one piece of, hi Adam and Adam, one piece of software and some observational pieces. Okay, so what I'm showing you right now is called vNote. It is v-note.org, I think. I'll send you out the link, or it should be in there. You get 30 minutes that you can share for free, but you can use anything you want on here for free yourself. And I will tell you flat out, my friend owns the company. He's built this, and I love it because I can say, Brandon, this piece really stinks. Please do something different. Fix it for me, do whatever. And he has people that do it for him. Or he works with them or whatever. So he writes up help guides and things like that. So I have on here a really big piece of video. It's an hour and 15, but it allows you to see some of the things that are, I can get it to go back. All right, I'll just start at the beginning, even though it's not roll. Come on. Okay, so maybe it's not going to cooperate because it keeps saying it's still got to load, and it's been loading since before we started class. Yes, that should work. Okay, so I'm going to turn my volume down a little bit because it is loud, and I want to show you how this piece of video works. Now, up in the top piece, where, and this will work on everything except a Chromebook. A Chromebook has an issue. A Chromebook has an issue with it. So, because you can't download anything onto it, you have to run it through the browser, and so it makes it a little bit, I'm trying to move my spotlight there. All right, so this block in here is transcript. So as you transcribe pieces, you will be able to write your transcription in here. I also have had people write their transcript out in Word. They've also done it in Excel, where every exchange of people, every exchange people are making is within a different line in an Excel spreadsheet. I am fine with however you want to do your transcript, whatever software you want to use, whatever piece of technology, or if you want to write it out by hand. I like this one because it ties together the coding and the transcript, but you don't have to use this. It is a little glitchy. Occasionally it can be hard to watch. So can you see, you can see my screen, okay? So whenever I turn the video on, I upload the video. Okay. Or maybe I don't. Okay. So when I upload the video, it's supposed to show the students that are in there and you can hear the conversation. And there's labels that you can add to it that help you identify where your codes are being expressed while the students are working on things. And then when you transcribe the pieces that are there, it actually codes them the color. The nice piece about this is it'll drop them out at the bottom and you can download them. And I can also have other people code this with me, and that's how I get my inter-rater reliability. That's how I establish validity, and I can establish some reliability based on both of us coding, and we can either talk and have consensus on what codes should be there, or we can have a little bit of difference, and we can statistically analyze that by counting up the codes and comparing them. Since this is not cooperating, I'm going to make you guys a video that you can watch and kind of see how it works, since it won't load. I had it playing before you guys all got on, so I'm assuming it's my lovely internet bandwidth that is cooperating so well. Because it was playing before we got on here. Okay. All right. So I'll make you a video. You can watch how that works. I'll explain what I'm doing and talk you through the whole process, and you can watch that sometime during the week. Any questions about creating your interview questions, about your other pieces that you need to submit? I've started working through those ones that were just submitted yesterday, or yeah, that were just submitted yesterday. So I should have those back to you in the next day or so. Some of you still have new stuff. That's okay. We'll get to it.
So, sorry, did you say that we have to transcribe the entire observation? Is that what's being transcribed?
I need you to do 30 minutes, or 15 minutes, I'm sorry, 15 minutes. So if you have 30 minutes of observation, or if you have 30 minutes of interview, you can pick the 15 minutes that are beneficial for you. Because if you have like 10 minutes of paint drying, and then 10 minutes of really good conversation, and then 10 more minutes of paint drying again, and then 5 minutes at the end, the 15 minutes that make sense to use for your project are the ones you should be transcribing. It doesn't do you any good to not, because you're going to want to use pieces of conversation in your paper to substantiate the things that you say are really important. So if you have 3 findings, you're going to want to have pieces of interview or pieces of conversation or pieces out of a discussion board or an online annotation or meeting minutes that you can put in there to say, this is what was really important to answer the question, this is what I found, and here is a piece of interview, and here's a piece of observation, or here's a piece of a document that helps support that. You're going to give little transcripts, little, almost like you're writing a newspaper article, and they, here's a big finding, or here's a big thing that I found out with my investigative reporting, and how do I know that? Well, I talked to this person, and here's a quote from them. And, I snuck into the basement of this building, and I looked at documents, and here's the thing that I found that's really important. You're not going to sneak in the basement and look at documents, but that's kind of the way that you're putting your paper together. Does that make sense? I am not advocating a life of crime. Okay. Since the video is, or my VNote is not working to show you that, that takes about 10 minutes out of what I wanted to show you tonight. I will have that posted after this, sometime tonight. I'll go through it, assuming that it'll work. If not, I'll send you an email that says, it's not working, I'll get back to you. Do it another way. Next week will be our last meeting before you go and do your video or your data collection and all of that. And we'll just be talking a little bit more about analysis and putting the whole thing together. And then you'll be off on your own. I'll be pushing you out of the little birdie nest. Okay? Questions? Okay. All right then. You guys have a really great night. And I appreciate you giving me some of your time in the evening. And email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can with any answers that you need.
What time did you say your open hours are tomorrow again?
7 o'clock. I'll be on here sitting. Yeah, all of you have open office hours then. You don't have to make an appointment. You can just swing on by and, you know, wait in line a little bit or just chit chat, whatever. There's usually not too many people that show up. I have one guy from one of my classes that comes every week because he wants clarification. But other than that, we're usually pretty empty. Okay, if you don't have any other questions, then if you're ready to go, you can hop on out of here. I'll stop recording.